There he is.
Hello. Today is Wednesday, April 30th. This is the Commerce and Economic Development Committee, and it is 10:41 a.m. We are here with Tim Tierney, who has two reports to share with us. The first, we're going to start with the Quebec Business Program.
So, hi, Tim Tierney. I'm the Director of International Trade and Business Recruitment in the Department of Economic Development. Nice to see you all here today. Obviously we've been doing business with Quebec forever, since the beginning of Vermont, so to speak. The Republic of Vermont traded with Quebec when there really was no border. That we had a president who we don't know if he was actually born here in Vermont or Quebec, especially Arthur, right? So, but obviously we have a long trade. My position was created, say, like 7 years ago now, to do business recruitment, obviously focusing on our fertile ground up in Quebec, to bring businesses down here. Because we have quite a few businesses that actually have come across the border. But if we're going to bring in foreign direct investment, which is very important for creating jobs, retaining jobs, creating economy, Quebec actually is the best place to go because of proximity, because of our long tradition and history. That being said, it was kind of tough to break into that culture, or not knowing, their ecosystem. So meeting other trade directors, a lot of other states they have offices somewhere representing them in places. It can be Taiwan, Singapore, Germany, but Quebec. And we're like, well, we need one in Quebec because we need to find out how that works up there and make introductions to get people here. So I want to say it's now 4 years ago, the legislature introduced, put some funds in so we could actually contract with a rep up there. And we hired, after like 3 or 4 proposals, we selected what we thought was the best one, and it's turned out we've done really great with them. It's CDEP, it's called. And CDEP actually goes and they reach out to companies in Quebec and Canada, but primarily Quebec, looking to see who's poised, or they know who's poised to actually move into the US market. And then they go, would you consider Vermont? So they're actually making that outreach. They're speaking their language. They have knowledge base of who they are. They'll do visits. And once they make that introduction, they bring myself and anyone from my colleagues or team to meet with them, to bring them to the next step. They find out what they need, facilities, what they're looking to do. How can we introduce them to their ecosystem or sector as well? So basically they've created a pipeline for us, and it's kind of up to us here. And we've done it with Jonathan. Interesting, you bring the RDCs into the mix, because they're going to be the ones that will know what's on the ground, and they're taking the next steps. They can help them with the veggie applications. They can help them introduce them to folks in the area. So it takes a village, as they say, to get someone here. Because we had really great results from it. I think we never could do it just blindly going up there and like, hey, you want to move to? So having them on the ground, making those introductions, and researching does a great deal of help. So, and they attend trade shows on behalf of us as well. They'll go to the manufacturing trade shows. They even attend the tourism trade show this year. So not only are they our translators, now they have this knowledge base of Vermont and can sell us, which is fantastic. I don't know, are you interested in more? Are you guys interested in anything specific about Quebec-based businesses? Since is this tariff related, or are you just looking at the history of what we're doing currently with Quebec-based businesses, or
how the businesses are doing? How many businesses have we actually had success in bringing into Vermont? What the current system, how that's impacting the work that we've been doing, all of those.
Sure. Well, obviously we've contacted hundreds and hundreds of Quebec businesses, and out of that, we've attracted 8 or 9. There's some people. One business is a one person, right? But they're still making their place here, and they're growing. We've had some pretty good successes where people have actually. One company has grown, and it even went public a few years ago. The other ones, they've come and they have 5 to 6 employees. Some have bought existing companies that did not have a succession plan. They actually purchased the company, actually created more employees. So basically, they retained 100 jobs down in Springfield, Vermont, and they're in the aerospace manufacturing. So that's another factor that we're considering. Sometimes it's not them developing a company; they come here and purchase a company, but they also can bring those new monies in, new spirit and new energy to keep those companies alive and going well. So that's we try to do that as much as possible. Some of these companies are looking to get in defense contracts. It's very big here. We've had some companies really thrive. I think some of you might be familiar with Galvian or Revision. I mean, that's a Canadian company. They were originally made mining helmets, and then they kind of got into the military helmets. But they get a defense contract. Obviously, that's very lucrative, can be very steady income for some companies, and they can grow. So we find people looking for that, and we have some companies. I have a company right now that I think they're just done with being in the business, and they're looking for someone to purchase it. But they have great certifications that are defense ready. We have companies several like negotiating with them, and that we leave that alone. We just make the introduction and can't do much for that. We've had since January 20th, so to speak. We've had companies that were looking to expand, and none of it's because of the tariffs. These people, they have contracts in the U.S. And I might have mentioned this in earlier. They've actually, one has a contract to make airline food. Another one has contracts to make snow blowers or to provide snow blowers for airports, municipal and state airports and other places. Another one making boots for state police in Pennsylvania. So they have the existing contracts, and it's almost easier for them to come here for a variety of reasons. So they're looking to expand. We've seen it slow a little bit. And I can't tell, but everyone has different reasons, but I think it has slowed a bit. I think that people are being more tentative, and I would say that's across all levels since the tariffs or even the concept of tariffs have been introduced. People are on pause a little bit. So, and that's it. I mean, there's a variety of reasons behind it.
Uncertainty tends to cause businesses to hesitate a little.
Right, and I think that's all we're seeing. And so, and then we have seen some companies, because of the tariffs or the threat of tariffs, are looking to move here, and they happen to be more in the heavy industrial equipment because a lot of those. By the way, I just remember that I was with Galvin with you guys.
Yes, they were.
Hey, but heavy industrial equipment companies is making very large machinery. They're the ones really looking at. We can't have these things cross the border 3 or 4 times with tariffs and then retaliatory tariffs. They're not gonna. We need to find a place where we can reduce the amount of our cost. And some of these folks have existing contracts. And I think that's what scares most. Like that, unless they really renegotiate them, which is really hard to do, they're just going to be taking the hit. So they're looking to, hey, we need to come here or find. Another thing is we're actually, a lot of companies come here and utilize Vermont's contract manufacturers, which we have several of here in Vermont. So they'll actually come and actually just work with someone to make their product for a while, and we, they're very successful. We have I call Momentum, which I still call NSA from the Kingdom, and we have MSI in Morrisville. These are just examples of contract manufacturers that are finding a lot more business. We also have some fulfillment distributors that are growing a lot. They're basically. Some of these people don't have enough for Amazon, which requires so much inventory. So we're seeing that these fulfillment centers are actually growing, and some Canadian Quebec folks are using them to hold, and then it's shipping, and we've seen more of that as well. But as far as tariffs, what we're seeing, I think, just like you've heard probably from a variety of people, the rhetoric has them a little puffed up, so to speak. But again, it's the uncertainty is the big issue. There's like what's going to happen, what's the effect on the whole supply chain. So that's an issue. But one thing, and I think some of you are aware that we actually signed the Northeast Semiconductor Manufacturing Corridor Agreement because, and I think that's a realm that we'll see some growth in because basically you have Bromont, Quebec, you have Essex Junction, Vermont, and you have Fishkill, New York. We are a straight line, like Orion's belt of semiconductor manufacturing. And I think we can start attracting even from Canada or from anywhere, a supply chain to, because we're set right in the middle. We're a perfect place to be. And I think we're very excited about that relationship and how that's going to grow. So it's just a great opportunity for a variety of things, right? So,
So actually, on that topic of semiconductors, does this play into sort of ongoing federal consternation between the United States and China? And does this offer us opportunities to grow closer to European partners that are also in that industry with, and is that something that then Vermont, through this corridor, becomes a part of?
well, yeah, well, I mean, it is very global as looking at it. I think the intent is actually going, just kind of like Silicon Valley, like when you think of what Silicon Valley is, right? And so now I think the original intent was we create this corridor on a global level. You can look at, hey, here's this area that's now a concentration of semiconductor manufacturing and try to have it attract. I mean, that's going to attract attention. It's going to attract workforce, which is key. But obviously, this did not come out because of that. This was happening before that. And it just because it made so much sense. And it's very New York state spends millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars lifting up their semiconductor sector. And obviously, Quebec wants a piece. Everyone wants a piece, and also CHIPS money came in to New York and to us. And so that attracts me, right? So, but I would say it's attracting all of them. And I think I know talking to that, they're very much afraid what's happening in China and Taiwan because it's such an integrated sector. And a lot of this stuff is beyond me. But I think the European, I mean, Canada has, there's with more direct European than we do.
Does Vermont have obligations to be a member of that corridor?
We've signed it.
And so what is that?
It's an agreement. It's a memorandum of understanding. It's a handshake for us to share to, and to actually, even on the research levels, to share results. And I think it's creating more open doors for people. We were just up there in Sherbrooke a couple of weeks ago at their technology center. And so now UVM and Sherbrooke and University of Montreal are sharing their research, and they have some. I think the UVM was very jealous of their lab that they had up there. So, I mean, I think it sparks, and so that group's getting together, and we're talking about attracting, like, what are the needs, what supply chain is out there that we can bring to Vermont. So, yeah. How about you answer your question?
That's correct. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about USMCA, just getting back to the tariff stuff.
Sure.
And how does that help or impact everything?
Sure. So, I mean, USMCA is still the agreement that we have for trade with Canada and Mexico. And currently, in this, the 90-day hiatus from larger tariffs, that USMCA is still compliant. So if your goods is on the list to be compliant, and it's 51% is made in Mexico, US, or Canada, you don't have to pay tariffs. There are some things that are on there. Obviously, there's dairy is in the agreement with Canada. It has a threshold, like up to a certain, and then once it reaches a threshold and goes above that, you're paying tariffs. Softwoods is another one that they have I'm trying to think of the right term, but that's another one that it's not compliant with. But the rest of it, most of your goods here, and that's what we're finding, most of the goods, the trade existing has that compliance. And off that, I mean, it's the people that have mostly Chinese imports are the ones that are hurting right now, right? So, but most folks, if that stays in place, then it's not affecting trade as much because most people are compliant, and now they're actually filling out the paperwork to become compliant. A lot of them had not even done the necessary in the past, and now they're doing it. So, that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks very much. A few weeks ago, I can't remember exactly, we had a public hearing around tariff issues.
Yes.
And a number of businesses, sort of medium and smaller business, kind of were not, maybe confused isn't the right word, but felt that it seemed to be asking questions about how do we deal with this situation from both trade, sort of business perspective as well as the legal perspective. And at that time, I think the notion was raised, geez, it would be nice to have some sort of facility resource for information to help some of these folks. And, whether public or private or whatever, but just some sort of resource. Any sense whether that is still something that might be useful?
So we actually have a web page on like the resources that people can access, right, with the Agency of Commerce Community Development. And obviously it's just a resource guide for people to try to help answer questions and try to get them to the right place. And a lot of times it sounds like you're shirking, but it's really like, you really need to contact a customs broker on certain situations. Or, they fill out a paperwork to become USMCA compliant. There's how to do that. Is that what you're referring to, like resources in that?
Yeah, and I understand the website, and there are some resources there. I'm thinking particularly smaller employers. They might see that stuff, but they may still have questions about, well, how do we use that? Just because they're not as familiar.
Right.
Is there anyone where that those kind of companies can turn to help them navigate that process beyond the web page?
Yeah, well, it's been me. Right, yeah. But I mean, and a lot of them, it's helping them out with simple questions like where they can look to or what they can do. We can sometimes it's pointing them to the U.S. Commercial Service, depends, because this is mostly imports, which and a lot of what I dealt with before this was exporting, right? I mean, it makes sense that we're looking to expand our markets for Vermont companies. So importing, this is new for almost every trade in the country because, but that being said, I mean, and I know the SBA, the Small Business Administration, has been helping folks, small business development centers, provide assistance as well to some of these folks to try to navigate this. And I think the fear is, hopefully that they're not just, okay, we're good for now. And then when 90 days come up, it's going to be the panic again. It's almost trying to tell people like, really look at your supply chain, how this affects, how you can be compliant. What do you need to look into? We're looking into, I think we talked about that day, is the foreign trade zones, which are basically a zone right now, and it's basically just Chittenden County and parts of Addison County and Franklin County, where you can start something in your business. If you do enough exporting, you can bring something in, and if it goes now to another foreign country, you're not paying a tariff on those goods. But then you have to but it's very complex. You have to work with the customs, and it can be costly. So we're looking to expand that here in the state because I think we're finding that it might be a cash flow solution for a lot of folks because your inventory can be in there and until it leaves, you don't really have to pay that tariff. So I think some companies, for example, Turtle Fur and Morrisville's looking at that, where they have a lot of things that they're bringing in from China. And so we're trying to come up with solutions for people, but it's a difficult and complex world, and everyone is different. We have, this is not Canada, but there's a snow globe company down in, right? And it's just like that no one else makes them in the world. So do you start making them here, or do you gamble on like getting someone in Vietnam to go start making these? I mean, it's complex. And then how do you help them? And then do you want them to go make that gamble and go that route? And then 2 days later, the Chinese tariffs are gone. So, I mean, it's a hi, Jim. But My question about, basically, right now, there's like 3 or 4 people out there that are helping people, the small businesses as much as they can. And I think it's basically just providing that educational resources or pointing them to the correct resources. Ann Derringer, which is our customs broker company that's headquartered here in Vermont, and they're a leader in our nation. They've actually put together a tariff team, and they've actually brought some people out of retirement, to come back. They're an amazing resource, and I know that they're providing a lot of webinars and seminars. There's a webinar next week, Bolton Valley for the that Vermont Outdoor Business Association is running, and I think a lot of these associations are kind of having these seminars and webinars. But I know that A.M. Derringer and SBA will be there, so I think people are trying to hit these sectors, and because the outdoor business, they're some of the ones that are hit the most by China because they have most of their apparel is coming out of there, and they tend to be small companies, and so 90% of their goods are coming out of China. They're like, what do I do here? So we're trying to work with them as much as possible. But it's nice to have A.M. Derringer right here in our state, and they're providing that as well. So
I was going to say, I appreciate that you changed the landing page on ACCD to make it very easy for businesses who are looking at international trades to access things. So thank you. Are there other resources that you need? Are there other barriers that you're finding that we might be able to support you in and support the businesses in the state in?
well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think the big thing is going at people like, this is just on hold for now. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. So I mean, it's more. I think it's more of getting the news out. Like, don't rest on your laurels now. I mean, this is the time to be investigating and getting ahead of your, what's the impact? What's the potential impact on you if tariffs do go into place, or get a hold of ourselves or A.M. Derringer, or there's some that there's lawyers out there. I mean, there's legal teams. There's a lot of people out there that can help you, but everyone's situation is so different. And I think we need to hear their impact stories, or we can't help them either, right? That's another one. Like, if you're fearful, let us know so we can help. So it's getting the word out about that, I think, is the biggest one. So
Yeah, and it's great. And it's good to know that there are a bunch of organizations that are out there. I remember something you said, well, they call me. I guess my concern would be that you might, when the 30-day or 60-day period is 69.
yeah, whatever, how many days.
Period of time is up, you're going to be spread pretty thin. And
Yeah,
I know what you said.
it hasn't been too bad, to be honest with you, right? So I mean, a lot of folks, it has not been. So it's been, and a lot of it's like pointing to resources. I mean, that's what that's what I think we are. We're conduits to, so call Mike Marcotte, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got your number on speed dial.
That's obviously absolutely.
No, like I said, I mean, and that's the thing is, I mean, I think this woke a lot of people up too, right? Really looking at that web that they're involved with and how much it impacts. And it's really hard, I still think, for a lot of people to figure out like how integrated everything really is, right? So, yeah.
Areas around the state that are starting to talk more about bonded warehouses, foreign trade zones. We had one
Yeah.
up in at the Coventry Airport years ago that we put a foreign trade zone in there, and we had to pause it because no one used it.
Yeah.
We were talking about bonded warehouses as well. I mean, we have customs there. Burlington has the same. St. Albans isn't that far away, so, or Pygate, so.
So we have been talking about that quite a bit, and actually with the RDCs, the Brattleboro Development Corporation, and then the Northern Vermont Development, Dave Snyder, and they've actually have a person who's going to do this feasibility study. So I think currently right now we're looking for funds to help pay for that, and it's not too much, but basically it's going to be we can reactivate those 2 zones, the one in Brattleboro, the one up in the Kingdom. We can expand it. It doesn't envelop all of the state, but it is a start to grab it. And again, like I said, it's one of those things where I think companies, it's not an easy solution. I mean, there's a lot to it, and you have to really cost and complexity is something they need to consider. The bonded warehouse, familiar? That's basically the same thing where you can have one building, you can keep your things in there when it moves the bonded warehouse, you're then paying the tariffs on it. Maybe looking into maybe something like that at the airport would be good. The Burlington Airport might be something where you can, a lot of companies can do that. And it's the same with the foreign trade zone. You can actually have a general housing foreign trade zone where it's a building that customs approved of, and these are people basically will lease centers in there, but it's all covered by and you have to have a lot of security. You have, every person has to be vetted, and everything that's in there has to be inventoried. So, but that's another solution that we can look into, especially if these tariffs continue on. I think we're going to need to go there, that some of these companies are just going to have to do that. And it's cash flow bothers them the most. So
I was just gonna say, so it's a cash flow support, but it's actually more expensive in the long run because of all of the.
it has a cost to it, right? So it could be, but I mean, again, then they have to really dive into that, the complex system that's been created to enter a trade zone or create one at your business, right? So.
And dollars, how much the state needs to.
So I think I think that the RDCs can come up with 10. I think we're just looking for another 10 right now. I think that's for this guy to actually talk about how to reactivate these two. So that's the top of my head. So
We won't write it in ink.
right. So, but that again is going to take some time too, right? And that's the other thing, it takes time. It's something it can take up to half a year to year and a half to get into a foreign trade.
On that, I'm just recalling a traditional site framework and an alternative use framework that it seemed like the foreign trade zones had put forward to allow for a more sort of distributed sort of location of sites that would
Right.
be within an existing foreign trade zone. Something that might that's as long as within the state, it seems like it's viable. Do you know if and that goes to Treasury or Commerce, is that something that the federal government is still, those rules still apply? Have there more flexibility, less flexibility?
I guess they have flexibility with adjacent counties, seems to be. Like I know that Bennington can actually attach itself to the wind, because Springfield, Mass is actually the port.
Right.
So you do it by distance from these official ports. So that's how that works. But I guess you can attach, I found out that Bennington can be attached to that. And it's the same up with Burlington. You can get Addison County, Franklin County. I think everyone can grab Lamoille County. But there's definitely the center counties are tough because of proximity to a port, I think is the issue. So,
Great. Thanks.
we look into it as a department of hiring a firm to try to get the whole state, or as much the whole state as possible. That means we're talking a different customs office, different ports.
Yeah.
That means, and they came back with $120,000 price tag to create it, to create and make that work. And so the answer was we're going to hold for now.
Are there other questions on this topic? I know we have Tim here for a couple of topics today.
Just listening on VP this morning, and I know it's not your department, but within the agency is, they were talking about the Northeast Kingdom. I think professor from St. Michael's was talking about, there's a good expectation that the kingdom, and I would imagine the northwest section of the state too, will be hit pretty hard with loss of tourism dollars because of Canadians not coming there.
I mean, it already is.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know it's mud season, right? But I mean, my background was at Kingdom Trails, right? And when I was there, was 46% of the traffic was coming out of Canada, right? So, yeah, they're going to be affected. And you've probably heard testimony that people it's not so much the trade war, it's the rhetoric. But it's definitely. And the thing I'm still seeing, I mean, I was just in Newport the other day and I saw some Quebec plates there. It was, nice to see that. And I heard they're still going to Walmart, right? Which is amazing because the dollar's not that strong right now. I think that's another factor is if it weakens the Canadian dollar, it really affects us, right? So
Do we have the ability to, or do we talk with Walmart, like Kingdom or even the St. Albans area? To understand what they're seeing, are they actually seeing a decline because I know the border crossings, there's been a huge decline on border crossings, and so
Yeah,
is that,
that's a great question. We could probably go ask them. I don't know. I mean, I can call them. Yeah,
I
so.
think it'd be interesting to understand the bigger box stores where Canadians may be coming down shopping. I think our restaurants are feeling it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering
Yeah,
if.
east side must be feeling it, right? Yeah.
But it's not, it's not just dedicated to the Kingdom either, right? I'm sure that, Highgate, Swanton, St. Albans area, and even it trickles down to Burlington too.
Yeah, and if you look at Target, right, I think, yeah.
So, just wondering if, I wonder through tax if we're seeing a decline, or we probably will start seeing a decline in rooms and meals tax and sales tax to state.
For sure.
Yeah.
On that note, about messaging, what kind of messaging are we doing to make sure that our friends know that we're still friends?
Well, I think that's the messaging that's been going out all along. I mean, I don't think there's been too much messages about how the state of Vermont or our department feels about the trade war. It's been more about the fact that it's our Canadian friends to the north and that long history and culture and history of trade and how important that is to us. I think that's the messaging that we keep continuing. I know later I'm working on a resolution with, I'm not really working. I think I'm going to be listening, putting in a resolution with the Senate Commerce about basically about that. I mean, it's continued handshake. We've been making a lot of visits up there and I'm going up Monday to Quebec City. I mean, it's a lot of it is, and then, right, we're from Vermont, we know how important this relationship is. We need to continue it. So I mean, that's kind of the messaging that we're working with constantly.
Are we actively marketing to our Canadian neighbors?
Well, there's some things like I was going to mention, like, I mean, the new mayor of Newport, Rick Upper Chase, like buy some Canadian flags, hang them on the main street.
Yeah.
St. Albans, hang them on the main street. Like, go show our Canadian friends that we support them. I think that's just something that's just more of a,
No, I mean, that's all.
I mean,
part
we
of the
need to do
messaging
that.
And marketing for
Yeah.
sure, and whether you how are you actively doing that we feel.
and I think it's right. I think it's bringing their media down. I think is what we need to do too. And I see that they're marketing their events more to us. I don't know if anyone's noticed that as well. I've seen a lot more commercials for the Montreal Jazz Fest. I think they're worried about
Yeah.
both ways, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
But I know as our tourism department is very active in trying to keep that message alive too about Vermont's open, this is where you love to hike and bike and boat.
Are we ready to switch gears?
Yes.
All right, so Tim is also here to talk to us about the Sister State Working Group. Do you want to give folks, this is a almost completely new committee, so there are only a few of us who are familiar with what the Sister State program is and what the working group does, and give an overview, and is that part of it?
Yeah, and you might want to clear something up for me too, because did the sister working group come out of this committee? It did, okay. Awesome. And first I want to say that we do have a working group, and from hearing from many people, they seem like that everyone loves that we have such a functional, active working group that's completed a lot of great work. So this was the report that we were legislatively mandated to by in February. So I think it came out on the 12th or on Valentine's Day appropriately. So basically we're slated to go look into and create criteria, and I think put some guardrails or to wrap up, how do we look at sister states? I mean, how do we actually create it? We have one sister state, and it's Tottori in Japan. We used to have a sister state that was in Karelia in Russia, and obviously that was kind of just phased out over time. And but Tottori Japan came out because we we have a very active student exchange program with Tottori, which is a prefecture, basically a state in Japan. And it's the most rural agricultural prefecture in Japan. And out of that, I believe in 2017, Governor Scott basically created a sister state with Tottori. So that's the lone sister state that we have as a state. And we have very active sister city programs in Burlington. But we're looking at creating what's it take to actually create a sister state? What are the main reasons that you want a sister state? How do you maintain that sister state relationship? And obviously selecting. So I think that's where, yes, go ahead.
As a person who wasn't here during the 2024 session, can you maybe explain to me the concept of a sister state, or it might be in the report too?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the report. I mean, basically a sister state is someone that you have an agreement with for a variety of reasons. I mean, it can be the cultural, it can be educational, it could be economical. To actually form an actual official agreement that you're going to continue to share and work together or provide information. I mean, all varieties, and it can become very ceremonial as well, right? But it's basically now we've created this place that we're gonna share a variety of these things with. It's interesting when we've gone through and we've talked to states that have other sister state programs. And I think the most fascinating thing when I first got into this, I was really looking at the economics of it. Like we really want to tie into it, but it seems to keep it going. A lot of these places have a diaspora or a group that is connected somehow. Like say in Barrie, a large Italian American population, somehow that group, if they're there willing to keep relations going, it's not just the government doing it. There's another group that's maintaining that relationship and communication. And that's been very interesting to me. I mean, Edie's Representative Granning is on our committee. And I don't know that you probably have input on that as well. I mean, some things that we found that were interesting, I think, was we found that some states, like Maryland, so close to Washington, D.C., they have like 18 sister states and only like 3 or 4 are actually active. I mean, they created them so quickly. I think that's what we want to go and create a criteria and actually a great parameter. So we have an effective sister state program. And it's not something we're just entering in because another country wants us to. It's also vetting these countries is another reason, like going back, like, why do we do it? Who are they? What's their reason for wanting to have a sister state? I mean, there's a lot of reasons that I think we're coming up with and creating that criteria to make sure that if we do create one, it's going to be long lasting and beneficial to Vermont, but it's healthy and has good reasons behind it. And there's multiple parties involved. It's not just ceremonial governor showing up. So I think it's. But I mean, I can go through. I mean, our process is great. I mean, if you saw the committee, we have a great committee. I can tell you who's on it outside of. We have Jill Briggs Campbell, the Secretary of Education. Trevor Lowell's with the Department of Ag. Susan W. McClure, who's the Vermont Arts Council. Patricia Preston, who's the co-chair with me. She's the Vermont Council on World Affairs. Major General Knight is on there. Lise Verano, who's with the city of Burlington and actually oversees their sister city program. And she's also a knight she's a honorary knight with France. And Peter Lynch, who is a catalyst behind this all. He was a person with Green Across the World out of Vermont. And I think the exchange program kind of started with him with Tottori in Japan. And he was, of course, we have Representative Edie Granning. And I have help from two of my colleagues, Jess and Nathan Davidson. But again, it's been a real active group. We're meeting once a month. And we're going through, we're talking to other states. And now we're getting into the really sorting out, like, what is that criteria? What are those parameters? What do we want to see? And then what's the process of the selection? And then who is going to be on the committee to keep it going, or even to look at the actual feasibility of the reason we have these relationships with these sister states, or even who do we target to who do we want to be a sister state with? That's another great question. So we do not have a sister state with Quebec. We're a part of Quebec, which is interesting, right? We could always look into things like that. We've been working a lot with Austria, this Styria. This is one state, and it's very similar to Vermont. They have the ski areas and the manufacturing, and they understand our tradition here. They don't watch The Sound of Music, by the way. We found out. But there's so many ties here with them. That's another one where we have economic tradition, culture, and possibly education. So looking at all those factors, we can create a sister state, and just to make sure that it's not just a governmental thing, it has to be more people involved.
The Austrian ambassador was here 4 years ago.
Yep, Schneebauers, yeah. We'll be seeing her in Washington DC in a couple weeks, yeah.
She was in Milton.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when they go to the Trapp Family Lodge or the Thai there. We have a few companies here from Austria. And that's the things that, I look at on the economic side is all of our wood pellet boilers and furnaces or biomass furnaces are all made in Austria. And we have a lot of them here. So maybe we can start manufacturing parts here, like, start thinking of coming over here, working with Vermont, and we're very similar in that way. I mean, so bringing some economy here would be an interesting way to do it. But again, I don't know if anyone's you guys are probably very busy and reading the report, but I don't know if anyone has questions about our process or anything about the sister state. And I'm sure Representative Granning probably can say something.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we keep coming across is there are a lot of intangibles that are very beneficial to having these relationships, and it's hard to quantify what is beneficial. And I think that's one of the pieces that we're going to have to figure out. I think we can all talk about, the, exchange and the interaction, the cultural, the education, the business exchange, all of that. But again, it's really hard to quantify the value of any of these things. And so we just have to really understand, right? How do we go forward in an area where we can't necessarily quantify that, but it will cost us some state dollars to put the program together? And so we just have to be comfortable with that. With that in the right word is here. So that's one of the things that the committee is probably going to be grappling with a little bit more. As Tim said, we did learn that we're doing it in a way that makes a lot of sense, which is to come up with our criteria first and to understand what we really want first, because in just about every state we've talked to that has these programs, they popped up and then they said, wait, we have to figure this out. And so they ended up with programs, sister state relationships that they probably wouldn't choose, but they're historic for them and they keep them going because there's special interests that are driving them. And it's not necessarily a state interest that's driving it. And so, in theory, we're doing it the right way by being slow and steady on this. And we have a lot of great programs that are doing a lot of this work. So how do we support them in doing the work rather than reducing what they can do, right? How do we use what they're doing and encourage it and build them up more? So that's kind of where we are.
Right, and I think a big thing is coming out there. There's a cost to diplomacy too, right? Even entering in, if you have a delegation that comes from Tokyo to Japan, you have there's a dinner, there's something has to happen, and it's just where you're drawing those funds from, or is there nonprofits or groups? And an example is Vermont Council of World Affairs, which is probably the most active group that bringing foreign delegations here on a variety of issues. But obviously their funding is getting cut from the State Department. That they've done they were the lead for a lot of State Department delegations here, and that's going to be dwindling here soon. So, and that's another thing is that we're exposing the world to Vermont and some of these things, and that's a real important thing for a variety of reasons. But a lot of it is economical, I think, when it comes down to it. So, so one thing we just released a survey. And we're putting out trying to find out what international relations or what international contacts does your group work with, or your school or your nonprofit. I mean, so we're trying to find out, get an inventory of what's out there, who has contacts out in the international world, because I think that the key is finding those groups that might be able to, if we do establish one, it has to be a very active group that keeps it going. Again, I mentioned like Hawaii has some great ones, but Hawaii has a large Japanese American. And so it makes sense that these groups are keeping that contact, right? So, and we have a large Irish diaspora that came here after the potato famine in 1850, right? But, I know that's that's still on the table, is our Irish Trade Commission. Is that right? I don't know if that's still out there.
There's a bill.
There's a bill.
Yeah, and the question is, does that get pulled into this? And should that be part of the sister state program with the parameters of a sister state?
Right.
That we're looking on creating.
And I want to say I think by this November and December, we should have everything finished and completed, present here, by like January 15th, of what our recommendations are. So.
Just to echo what Tim said, it's an amazing group of people with so much experience, and everyone is bringing in their experience and really listening to everyone else and taking all of that information and going forward with it. So it's been a really productive group.
Yeah. And actually, I'm today, the Consul General from Japan is here, so I'm meeting them at noon here somewhere. So, I guess, there used to be, now, I don't know, there's talk about the International Trade Commission. There was one, right? And that did it, and I can't get a straight answer on whether it was sunset or not, but.
I don't believe it was. I don't think, because there were gubernatorial appointments. And I don't think they were ever made.
Sure.
They haven't been made. I've been to one meeting, and that was before I was chair. Kathy Keenan, and Kathy Keenan and might have been Ann Cummings were on that committee. And Kathy had asked me to be on there, but it is the chair of Commerce and the chair of Senate Economic Development that are on that commission as well. But it's been a long time since I've anything to do, and I don't know. Maybe we should talk about whether or not we could get that going again. It makes sense.
Right, all right. Do you need an Irish Trade Commission, or do you just need a trade commission, right?
Yeah, well,
That's
the International Trade Commission.
correct.
No, we talked, the only meeting I went to, we were talking about NAFTA and some of the issues that were going on there. With, countries filing suits against some of our business.
Mhm.
At any time you have any of the delegates that are coming from other countries, if they're here to talk about economic development, if there's an interest, bring them into the committee to just have that discussion with us. We've done that with our Quebec
Sure.
Canadian, and we've done that with our Taiwanese delegates as well, that we would be more than happy to have a conversation with them as well. So let them know that we're always open to hear from any people that come.
Fill in for Tim when he doesn't show up on time. You could have that.
If your company can.
But yeah, and I found out this morning that this Japanese consul is here. And so, but yeah, no, that's an easy thing to do. I think they're looking for that opportunity. A lot of these folks, right?
Yeah,
So,
we've only really started doing that the last few years. Time that I've been here, we've never, as far as I know, we've never had them come in and talk to the committee. And with our friends from Taiwan, started asking them to come in and actually have those conversations, because I think it's important for the committee members to know what's going on outside the walls of Vermont and how we integrate with other countries. It's not just the United States integrating with these countries, it's our businesses that are here that integrate with those countries as well, so.
That's a great example. I mean, it's Taipei and I mean, or regions in certain areas that, right, it's subnational. This happens a lot of times, or business to business, right? And that, you know, and as on that topic, you know, I mean, somehow one of the hardest things to find out was this job is what Vermont companies actually have places in China. It's something that no one keeps track of, but we have quite a few. But I think they're being impacted. I think the Chinese government's coming down hard on companies, U.S. companies. But I think we'd start reaching out about trying to find out what is happening. What is that impact out there? So
I guess if I was a country that was dealing with China right now, I'd be worrying about my intellectual property. I mean, you always have to think about that, but now, you know, if they exit China, what happens to all their intellectual property as well?
exactly, yeah. All these worries and I know with some small companies they're going to Vietnam and Malaysia. They're traveling right now, looking for other things to do. So
Workarounds, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me. I don't know how you're going to fill 2 hours with me originally, Dan.
We have a group that's inquisitive and
Yes, you do. Yeah.
questions, which is a good thing.
So I'm going next week to Quebec City, and this is the Eastern Canada. It's a transportation more than anything, but it's the Eastern Border Transportation Committee at Quebec City. And obviously, I'll be taking you know our numbers up, which tourism will provide me, but also talking about our border crossings, but also impacts on both sides. And to hear it from Quebec City, which is a little more harsh, right? Like we've been hearing from Sherbrooke, which is directly see where that impact is happening. And then the following week, I'm down at Washington, D.C. for the Select USA Summit. And I don't know if you don't know, I'll explain. Basically, it is run by our U.S. Commercial Service around the world where they attract foreign companies poised to enter the U.S. market. So all 50 states, all the U.S. territories are in one monster conference in National Harbor, Maryland. And they're there to meet and see where would be a good place to land. So we'll be down there, Secretary Curley, and now Commissioner Long, Interim Commissioner Long will be with me to meet these companies. And we prearranged quite a few meetings. And we actually have a set aside meeting just with the Austrian delegation, which is 16 Austrian companies. So we have our own little set aside meeting with them, which is great as well. So we'll be down there mid-May. So that's the whole thing, the foreign direct investment, and we'll see how that's going to play out this year, right? So we've heard that the Indian delegation has grown like threefold. So India's seeing an opportunity to enter more, right? So yeah.
Well, if we're still here, maybe we'll ask you to come in and fill us in on how.
Yeah. More than happy to do that. Unless someone wants to go to DC with us, I guess.
I feel.
That's not an easy.
I think so.
Go down, show you around.
All right.
And our former committee assistant is there.
I was in there because he's a neighbor of mine in St. Johnsbury, right? Andrew, right? And I opened the door and what are you doing here? Right. So yeah. Welch's office, yeah.
Yeah, well, if you see him down there, tell him his whole committee said hello.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you.
Yeah, right. My pleasure. Thank you all. So
Great.
enjoy the day.
So committee, I think that's it for this morning. Maybe we can fill you in a little bit on our discussions with general housing, on the CHIP program. I think it went very well. Well received. Questions? We do the test is next Tuesday when we go upstairs, so see what happens, and I think
Rural caucus this morning also. A lot of you were there. We're very happy to hear about the program. So
yeah, I saw Laura in the hallway too. She was real enthusiastic about it. So, yeah, I think we've produced a pretty good product. It's not everything for everybody, but it's something that'll move the needle. If it doesn't, then we'll revisit and fix it. So, 1 o'clock, we're gonna look at new draft of S69. And we're gonna sit with, no? Oh, that's right, Flora won.
It's like, what do you mean no to?
I don't think the floor's gonna be that long, so
Yeah.
in any event, after the floor, we're here on S69. What we plan is to figure out what we're gonna do tomorrow, Friday. Okay, so. Good time off